Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Today I'm speaking with the portfolio manager of Pavilion Resource Fund and the president of Accilent Capital Management, Dan Pembleton. Dan is here to talk about the not such subtle elephant in the room, the upcoming election here in Canada. We are just a few days away, and one of the big issues of this election is going to be tax. Each party seems to have a different platform, but I think there is one sort of prevailing view that taxes are likely to be headed north, not just in Canada but across the world. So, would love to get your thoughts on that today, Dan.
Great, thanks, Gianluca. Appreciate it. We're seeing, the interesting part of this election that I look at compared to, say, past elections is in many past elections, parties were talking about how they were going to lower taxes and save people money, and now the platforms seem to have definitely shifted. I think because of necessity. I think we all know that given the financial situation of governments post-COVID and even pre-COVID, that tax rates couldn't really come down anymore. But now it seems that they are being quite overt in their desire to raise taxes. In fact, so that they're becoming planks in their platform for the election, and I think that doesn't really bode well for not only post this election, but I think we all know that the true desires to raise taxes are probably still being masked somewhat going into it. So it's concerning. The Liberals have said that they're going to have a minimum effective tax rate for individuals. So I think that is setting up the stage so to try and reduce the opportunities for the highest tax earners to be able to lower their average rate below 15%. And with that, I think the follow-on that isn't in the platform, but I think if elected, would follow with a higher tax rate. So they're reducing the opportunity to avoid now, and will look at raising the rate later. And then you've got the NDP, who are critical in a minority government, are critical to supporting whoever is leading, and they are already proposing to raise taxes for the top marginal rate by 2 points, and also proposing a wealth tax. So I think, as you look around, certainly even in this election, that we're seeing a real desire on the part of some parties, even in an election platform, to say that they're going to raise taxes. And I think that's just the start.
Yeah, I'm looking sort of just at a high level at some of the different platforms right now, and I think what I'm seeing is the Liberals are basically aggressively pursuing some other taxes as well. I'm not sure if it's been decided yet. It looks like there's just some headlines here saying that they're laying the groundwork for potentially even like a homeowner's equity type of tax. So it looks like it's more of a competition of who can get the more attractive tax out there in the election time. What do you make of the push, I guess, globally among the larger nations for a minimum tax threshold? Do you think that's going to have any impact on, not just the Canadian taxation policies, but just the economy as a whole?
Well, I think what I see, and what you're talking about is the international agreement, the OECD agreement, to put a minimum tax of 15% on corporations, and I think there's over 150 countries that have already said that they would participate in that. And while I think that immediate effect is relatively minimal, certainly there will be some corporations, ones who have been actively avoiding or potentially evading, depending on how you look at it, taxes by setting up in ultra low tax jurisdictions. I think those companies will be affected. I think overall the effects will be minimal. But what it does do is it ushers in a mentality amongst governments of cooperation on tax rates, and I think that once they have some success, and you get in this case, say a 15% minimum rate, well, it doesn't take too much to negotiate, say, an 18% minimum rate, or to get further cooperation on other areas of tax. And I think it just becomes the thin edge of the wedge that once you get cooperation, maybe in something that seems a little relatively minimal or innocuous at the moment, is really the opening that governments need in order to start raising rates. And you also have in the UK, they're proposing a new tax of 1.25%, specifically to fund health and social programs. And so whether it's done with additional taxes or tax cooperation internationally, or just increasing rates, marginal rates in specific countries, the pressure is coming from everywhere, really, to increase taxes. And I think we should all expect that taxes will increase, and we should start preparing for that as well. And we haven't really even looked at, within Canada, we haven't really looked at even on the provincial level. Certainly there's many provinces that are in a position, a financial position, that they are also going to need to raise taxes. So I think you're going to have multiple levels of government raising taxes. And when this is happening, I think people have to really look at their own tax plan and their own toolkit that they have in order to try and minimize the impacts that's going to have on their wealth.
Yeah, good point. So with that said, on the election, is there any other major issues or key things that you're watching come Monday's election? Or maybe even specifically, is there different scenarios that you're looking at, whether it's a minority win for Conservatives or Liberals? It looks like it's probably going to be one of the two who eke out in the polls. Is there any change in your investing mindset or anything else that you're looking at come Monday when those results come in?
Well, yeah, I think it does. Certainly it does depend on whether it's a Conservative win or a Liberal win, but I think it's a matter of degrees. The Conservatives seem very, at least theoretically, interested in trying to keep tax rates lower. I don't know whether that will be fiscally possible, given the amount of money that has been spent and the size of programs that we have in place. Certainly they will try, but if it's a minority government, you always have to depend on another party to prop you up. And at this point, potentially. There's, potentially, I guess you could get parties such as the Bloc helping out the Conservatives if the Bloc were able to get enough seats. But it seems most likely that what we will get is what we already have, which is a Liberal minority government supported by the NDP. And I think if you look at those two platforms and the combination of those two platforms, we are going to see something being done on taxes and quite likely on the highest marginal rate, and I think that's just a fact of what's going to end up happening. And as somebody said, the good news is they're only going to be taxing the rich. The bad news is that everybody's considered rich. So that's what I see happening. I think first it starts with the top marginal rate, and then it's like, well, people, that's only on people who are making over $200,000 a year. I mean, if you're making over $150,000 a year, maybe that's really more considered should be the top marginal rate. So I think you'll see the brackets creep down. I think you'll find they'll find different ways to increase those taxes, and that's how it starts. And and that's certainly something we all have to be aware of, whether it's in. But it really, in any tax in any tax environment, I think one of the best ways for people to maintain and protect their wealth is certainly to look at taxes. Taxes are, for most people, your largest expense. When you look at your gross income, how you spend it, the first and biggest expense that you have is your taxes. And so I think it's always useful for people to examine how efficiently they are managing their tax bill.
Yeah, agreed. Well, let's see what happens. We're just a few days away, so I guess we'll get our answer shortly. Look, Dan, it was a pleasure. Always insightful, and we'll talk hopefully again after the election. Thanks.
Great.
Dan.
Thanks very much, Gianluca.